he's got that thing that the real slick guys are lacking, which is just a real music in his soul, and like even if it takes a little longer to get to, there's something to this song. Like he can get to the point of something. He can,
which is a superpower.
It really is.
That can be occluded by too much education or finesse or polish.
You can get so far out in the weeds or so zoomed into the drum part or the bass part or the guitar part, and he's really good at streamlining the point of each song or the point and flow of a set list with Pat.
Greetings, everyone. This is Eric Henry Anderson, and welcome to another episode of Conversations for Convergence, a curious podcast exploring myriad topics including music and the arts, health and wellness, culture, science, high performance, and many others. Today's guest is Matt Musty. Matt is a professional musician, songwriter, and producer who currently plays drums in the Grammy Award-winning pop rock band Train. His passion for music began at an early age, growing up on a farm in rural New Hampshire, packed to the brim with instruments. In addition to Train, he's worked with a long and impressive list of some of the biggest names in the industry, including Gwen Stefani, Blake Shelton, Keith Urban, Grace Potter, Smash Mouth, and many others. In this episode, Matt and I get into the implications of AI on creative industries and the evolution of recording technology, Train lead singer Pat Monahan's ability to adapt along with the music industry, and his voice being the through line of Train's catalog, developing musical maturity, landing the gig and touring with Grace Potter, co-writing with Pat and Jerry of Train and the utility of direct communication, working through the crap to get to the good stuff, the technical side of delivering a world-class show, crossing your T's and dotting your I's first, and then having a blast on stage, Matt's favorite songs and moments performing with Train, including the timeless smash hit Drops of Jupiter, fostering a sense of community through live performance, Train's upcoming European tour, our reflections of Matt recently producing my song, Ocean of Oxytocin, which will be out in the world later this fall, by the way, and a few other fun topics. In addition to being an incredible drummer and producer, Matt's also quite a fantastic guy, who I had the pleasure of meeting on board Train's music cruise, Sail Across the Sun, and getting to know even better through our recent collaborative work on my song, Ocean of Oxytocin. I really hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as we both did. Matt Musty, thanks for joining me today.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How's your morning going so far?
Pretty good. We just got some sort of partial agreement with the writer's strike thing, and
oh man,
things are happy in LA. A little gloomy weather-wise, but generally happy here.
I didn't have that on my list, but that actually would be a great place to start. What sort of agreement did you come to? What's going on kind of in that world?
Oh, I didn't come to anything. I'm not in that world, but just that writer's strike that's been going on. They came to some sort of partial terms, and like the writers can get back to work now, but I think SAG-AFTRA is still not reached an agreement. So I don't know. It doesn't relate to music, but it does, in that it's all connected and part of the thing. So big news out of here.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things I actually did want to talk to you about, was just AI in general. And as far as like writing music, writing anything for, whether it be a novel or a movie or a TV show or anything like that, we're certainly living in relatively unprecedented times as far as like how that could impact, songwriters and creatives of all types. I mean, have you given that much thought or what do you, such a broad question, but
not much thought. I mean, it's on my radar as much as anyone who's in that world can have it on their radar. But there's going to be some sort of way to balance it, harness it, use it for good.
Sure.
But I'm not sure what that is. I'm fascinated by all of it. There's a very Kurzweilian kind of feeling in the world now. But I'm not worried about it. I'm excited about it, but cautiously excited about it.
Sure.
Because with drummers specifically, and I'm a drummer, we got replaced by machines 20, 30 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been through this part before, but I think in general it's going to be an overreaction and then a coming to terms and working symbiotically kind of thing.
Like Phil Collins was one of the first people to start replacing drummers with machines, and he was a drummer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So there's a way to embrace it and work, intermingle with it in a creative way, even.
Yeah, for sure.
And in a human way. I think that people are worried about the soul of music leaving, and for decades drummers have been cutting studio tracks with a finished but quantized machine built track and then just putting this human sway on top of it. Of course AI is going to be so advanced that they can recreate that sway, but only to a point, and that's the one thing we can hold on to and know that it kind of can't get touched, which that imperfect nature of playing a song and appealing to someone's heart and soul because it's not perfect.
Sure.
And you must have the same thing, because a vocal is exactly that. A vocal is just this pure emotion and naked emotion that's like that you're bringing someone into your heart and soul, and it's naked and it's embarrassing and it's all this stuff, but you're putting it out there, and I don't think that's able to be replicated.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting thing to consider. I mean, maybe my thoughts on it are a little bit naive, but I mean, I think we're probably thinking about it similarly. But I was actually just up in the Redwoods with a friend, and she's a musician, and on the drive home we were talking about AI in regards to all sort of creative mediums. And what I was thinking is kind of like what you mentioned with drums, but there have been all sorts of techniques that at the time were cutting edge, and the dinosaurs in the room, or maybe even the kind of the average creator at the time, would push back on. I mean, just any sort of digital recording when you started on analog, or even if you go back further than that, it's like, okay, a real recording used to be there was one microphone in the room and it was a live take. And then there's multi-tracking, which is already cheating. It's already manipulating, and then you've got
Beat Detective, Auto-Tune,
all of it. So these were just iterations, and they can be used in ways that maybe do rob some of the sincerity of the music. But if you have the most creative people using them, you can use them as tools that actually augment the quality and the creation, and they can save time in certain ways where it just helps, So
yeah, I agree. Save space for that really human part of the creative process, and not having to be concerned with the stuff that's is going to be there and built in one way or another. Oh, nice, it's faster now. Cool, then I can get back to being human. Sooner.
I totally agree with that, and also, here we are. We're there anyway. So there's no sense in spending any time.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to adapt and figure out how it works.
I've found that I've heard Pat. I play drums in the band Train. The singer is Pat Monahan, and he's a legendary singer songwriter guy. And he said in multiple interviews, I've heard him say, if the minute you start complaining about technology and new music and the new order of things, that's when you start losing. Sure. And I think that kind of attitude has helped him have those generational hits that keep coming and adapting, and his sound tends to change with the times, and I think that's a nice thing to lean into and embrace, and I think his attitude is something we could all learn from on that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Certainly watching the evolution of Train over the years, you're right. It's definitely changed with the times, and it seems like Pat and the band and the musicians involved have sort of leaned into and embraced creative trends of the time. But there's definitely still a through line. There's absolutely there's definitely a sound and a character that is Train. And that's cool, because a lot of people that really broke in the 90s and early 2000s, for whatever reason, either chose not to do that or weren't able to adapt, and it's an impressive thing. You're totally right. And
that through line to me, which again I think proves the point that AI is not as much of a threat as we think. That through line of Train in this example is his voice and his voice alone. Not to not to undercut any of the contributions by band or anything, but just from the experience of writing with him and seeing that creative process, you feed him music and you try to get him inspired, and really until he puts a vocal on it, it's just music.
Right.
He puts a vocal on it, it comes back and you're like, oh, it's a Train song.
There's the through line. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's human. The through line is human, and I think that is here to stay, at least in certain genres of music.
Sure.
You know?
Well, and actually, I would love to get into that a little bit. I know that you've been writing, I think, along with Jerry, with Pat, and I would love to ask you about that. But something I wanted to just throw in, what you were saying made me think about this, having seen Train perform live a number of times. Like, you know, you guys are just a kick-ass band, like truly, and everybody's just fucking really good. And as a musician, I'm sure that's great to be in company of people who are badasses for sure. But you know, as an audience member and also as a musician, that means something to me at a show. Whereas, I guess what I'm saying, long story short, is just as a musician, I really respect that and I appreciate that. I know that when I see you guys play, it's like, it truly is a masterclass on how to like absolutely execute an incredible pop rock show, but with plenty of musicianship and elements where everybody in the band has their chance to shine. And anyway,
I do enjoy
congrats
that.
on that.
Thanks, man. That's really a nice compliment. And we all work hard on the live show. But yeah, it's definitely in today's world, that's getting to be few and far between, the gigs where you can actually play, you know? And I know plenty of drummers in my world who are on these pop gigs and who are like, man, I wish I could have a little bit more wiggle room on the gig. And like the train thing is just all wiggle room. You know, you have to be tasteful and you'll know if you're wrong. Yeah. But it's like, you know, I've talked about this with other people, but you can, you know, if you're playing Drops of Jupiter, you got to do that. You're not going to skip that fill. There are a couple other moments in that song where you're like, okay, I can do this thing. I can like throw my voice out, reel it in, come back to the song, and like still be within the music and have fun. And there is that play on stage with this band that I really enjoy. And, and that Pat leans into as well. He's like, take a, you know, we did American Girl this summer, and he's like, Taylor, the guitarist, he's like, take that big Mike Campbell solo, step out and take that. That's your thing, you know? I'll go away, or I'll throw a tambourine out in the audience, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, it's a mark of, I would say, musical maturity. You are part of a band. You're part of an ensemble, and the goal is to make this song or this show as impactful as possible. It's not necessarily to stand out as like, oh my God, did you see the bass player in that band? He's so good. I mean, of course, everybody likes to be acknowledged for practice and skill and all of that. But just to your point, that there's a place where, okay, this is my moment to like actually create an ad here. And this is the point where I think I told you I started learning on the viola, man. And there's hardly any times where we ever get to do anything, but it at least makes you understand you actually have a function here. And it helps. It's part of the ensemble. Yeah,
it is all just moments, you know, these calculated, yes, but like really natural feeling moments of either a 90-minute show, like a set list, calculating these moments and instrumentation, or just the course of a song is another good example. You know, if you've got a bass player who's just shredding through the whole song, it's not conversational. It's like someone's yelling at you for 3.5 minutes versus, okay, they have this one moment. Like, that's the best stuff. That's why I love, you know, the great bass players, is because there's this one moment where Pino will throw in a lick and you're like, oh, and then he just went back, you know? Like, it's just so, the judgment and taste is something that comes with the 10,000 hours, the 20,000 hours, you know, of like expertise and doing it a million times. That's real art. I love, that's why I love making records, is because drums are so that thing, you know, you pick your one moment in the tune and then you get back to work with as much fury in that groove as ever, but it's still the same groove. It's just, I love my vocation. I love drumming, you know? Yeah.
Well, there's something, I mean, I'm not a drummer, but as a musician, is obviously there's a percussive element to playing the piano. And I've sat at the drums and certainly toyed around with it, but there's something very primal about it.
before you go back to me, you can hear it in your playing too. This beautiful like groove within your hands
Thanks,
that
man.
clearly is there. That's wired in, and it's your influences, it's your practice, it's your time spent on the thing. Yeah. But you can tell that's what makes a great instrumentalist, is you can hear that feeling there. It's all implied. Like my favorite songwriters. Especially on acoustic guitar, you can hear the drum part in their right hand, basically.
For sure.
And you don't really have, there's no conversation that needs to be had. You're just like, okay, got it.
Man, the guy that I play a lot of duo shows with and have been writing with and in a band with for years, who came to the Train show at in Sacramento. You just met him briefly.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He wasn't on the gig that you saw us play, but the reason I'm thinking of this is when we do a duo gig, just piano and acoustic guitar, I play with a lot of different guitar players, but when I'm playing a duo, it's always most fun to play with Joel because it doesn't feel empty. He'll play fills. There's a groove. You know, it's like that Bruce Hornsby song, The Way It Is. I'm sure you know that song, right? There's a drum groove that goes pretty much uninterrupted the whole time. And when we play that as a duo, I'll play it solo too, and I'm sort of like kind of hearing the groove in the background in my head. But when we play with him just on his right hand and the acoustic guitar, there's this flow and the whole thing. And some people might be shredders on, say, electric, but they don't necessarily do that as well.
Yeah, totally different thing. Totally different. It's not this, it's this.
Exactly.
Like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing there. And you can overdo that, of course, and you probably do on a duo gig because you have no bass player, no drummer, whatever. But to take that to another band, a 5-piece band, and like, okay, I drop this element. Those are the greatest guys because they hear it and they know. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know, this
totally, man.
The whole like session musician kind of thing is just my favorite way to work. You know, it's the thing I've worked hardest on and the thing I'm best at, and I really enjoy being produced and being told, okay, we're doing a dotted thing here. Okay, I've been here a million times. I can execute this. Fast, efficient sessions. I love all of that stuff. I love bad studio coffee. It's all the greatest.
Are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker or what?
I'm a coffee drinker.
Oh,
I'm just a drinker.
Oh, right.
No.
Depends on the time of day, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I do like a little bit of wine, but I'm definitely a coffee like all day guy. I'm sure it's a problem, but
hey, as long as you don't have a problem with your problem, then
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're a drummer, you're a producer, and obviously, depending on the situation, maybe you're a little of both, and sometimes you're very clearly one or the other. So let's talk about when Matt Musty is the drummer and someone else is a producer. I think you were saying you enjoy that role as well, but maybe you could speak to some of the differences and how you might throw around creative ideas. But also, obviously, if there's a producer or a songwriter, there probably is some sort of kind of obvious hierarchy with like, this is what we're doing. And other times it's probably a little more like, how do you feel about this? And anyway, if you could just talk a little bit, your experience with that.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I live and work in LA. And when you're doing records in LA or Nashville, everyone in there, instrumentalists, are all producers in their own right most of the time. So you do have to, and it's easy just based on like the email that went out. You can tell who's the artist, who's the producer, and you that day are just a bass player. So you put on the bass player hat and you don't have opinions until you're asked. And you're self-producing, of course. You're saying, okay, I know this part. And that's part of the like non-conversation that happens. Like you listen down to the tune, you go, okay, this is this kind of thing, and you'll know if you're wrong. You take the first take and it's usually right based on everyone in the room's experience. And if it's not, you'll hear about it and you'll get it right the second take.
Sure.
So there's a silent self-producing that goes on if you're wearing the drummer only cap for the day. And then the producer and the artist are making those calls in the room, because it can just easily be too many cooks in the kitchen. I think on a lot of younger sessions.
There's no vision then. Yeah.
Yeah, well, or there's 5 different visions, and it's like, okay, well, we need to pick one.
Right.
And for better or worse, you got to go with, whoever's wearing the producer hat that day.
Right.
Same with live. For better or worse, you have an MD in a lot of these situations, and you go by their musical direction. That's what the role is. So even if it's not something you agree with, the job is to go blindly.
Right.
And if there's absolutely an obvious thing that they might be missing, you do it in a way that doesn't make them feel dumb.
Right.
You got to read the room in terms of tact and professionalism, and unless it's a band, which I don't really have much experience with, honestly. That just seems like a lot of opinions and a lot of slow sessions. And I don't love that. That's not my favorite thing. I like being efficient and getting it done.
Right. Yeah.
And the producer will tell you, dude, if it's wrong, you'll hear about it. And until then, you don't need to say, hey, I'm switching these hi-hats. You just switch the hi-hats, and if they're wrong for the tune, you'll hear about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So I know you worked with a bunch of musicians, but you worked for a long time with Grace Potter. When exactly was that period of time, and how would you say that's different from the Train experience? And how did you get that gig?
Well, the Grace Potter moment was the craziest thing ever. It's the stuff that you kind of dream about and hope for. I was in an opening band for her on a long tour. I'd been watching the set every night probably, and her drummer at the time left abruptly around sound check in St. Louis, and
like right before a gig.
Right before a gig, we were loading in. We, the opening band, were loading in, and they basically were like, "Hey, so he's out, I guess, and we're gonna need a drummer." I was the only drummer around that they knew, and so I played the opening set. Their set was their main part of their set, pre-encore, the whole meat of the first hour 20 of their set was played the keyboardist, auxiliary guy, Ben Allman, who actually played on your track. He played keys. He's an amazing musician, clearly, because he just jumped on drums and covered the show. While he was doing that, while they were playing that hour and change set, I was in the green room learning the 4 songs for the encore, and charting them and just getting them ready.
That's amazing.
So this hard work kind of paid off in that moment, because I can learn fast, and I was definitely reading, but I was like, okay, I can do this. And the songs came and went. It went well, and they said, "Can you cover for 2 weeks while we find the actual drummer?" And I go, "Yeah, I can cover for 2 weeks." And I did double duty for 2 weeks, and at the end of 2 weeks, they were like, "Can you be the drummer?" And I was like, "Yep, I'd love that."
So from the outside, you could see that
right time.
You could see that was going to happen, especially knowing your level of skill. But was that something that was on your mind? Were you going, okay, I'm going to get this gig, I really want this gig, or were you actually thinking this is just for 2 weeks?
No, I don't have that kind of confidence. I'm better about it now, but I've never been like, this is definitely my gig now. Okay. I was hoping that would be a thing that happened, but in no world did I think it was ever actually going to happen. And then it did. And then the rest for us is history, that we just became really close. I met my wife, Allison, on Grace's tour. She was Grace's assistant. So my life awesome. Changed that day, my whole life, not just my professional life, my entire life. And it's a time I'll always look back on fondly, because everyone on that tour was simultaneously going through the craziest time in their life. I was getting through a divorce and a life change. I had just kind of moved to Nashville. I don't even know if I had been there a year. And then that happened, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're just riding this wave. And everyone was kind of on that wavelength of the bass player had just gotten pregnant, wasn't expecting that. Grace was going through a big breakup. Allie was just being Allie, and our worlds were all crazy at the same time, and it really makes you reminisce in a way that's sacred and that meaningful in a life kind of way, as well as a career kind of way. So that's how I got the Grace Potter gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long were you playing with Grace?
I was playing with her in her touring band for probably 4 years, and then I did a couple records with her as well. And she's still a very dear, close friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that woman. And her husband, Eric Valentine, famous producer. They're just like a power couple, on fire all the time, always creating, always like taking swings at stuff, you know, like not afraid to just be like, okay, we're going total psychedelic on this record, or we're going total Western feeling thing on this record. You know, they're not, she can't be contained into a genre, which is really fun for an instrumentalist to be a part of. You hear that and you go, okay, wow, what are we drawing from today? Oh, okay, this crazy sound, let's go for that. It's not we've recorded in Nashville with her a bit, but it's not the typical Nashville in the box thing, which I love. But it's definitely, you're going for something way out at all times with her. Yeah. And it's so fun.
Well, I wasn't particularly familiar with her music before meeting you, but definitely delved into the Grace Potter world. And one thing that's totally obvious, which sort of speaks to what we're talking about in the beginning of the conversation, is she definitely just exudes this like boundless personality. It just shines through in everything she does. There is no doubt that she is like 100% committed to every single word and phrase and song and melody. And that is not the truth for everybody in the music industry, not even close. A lot of people are phoning it in. She's not one of them.
Well, that's the same concept with Pat, you know, like a great singer, it doesn't matter, you know, could be anyone playing drums up there. It's about the singer. But the what's fun about her, and what Eric, her husband and producer, has harnessed recently is this the live show is what people historically have loved about her, and capturing that on tape has been a challenging thing. He
like for studio recordings, you mean?
Yeah. So the big thing for them is getting a band that's going to put down killer keeper takes every time, so that she can record a live vocal, because we're going for her vocal. That's the thing. The other stuff is going to be there, and it better be great, because we're going for a keeper vocal most times with her. That's been really really a nice high bar to be like, okay, we can't just fly it in. If we're doing live takes with no click, we better have the take going on, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
The biggest edit, the closest crazy edit he'll do is just like fly in a pre-chorus from another take, because that vocal is better. It better be close in tempo, it better be close in energy.
If you don't have a click track, you better be
Yeah, so the stakes are really high when you're tracking with her, and I like that. It's a lot of pressure.
Cool. That's great. So I wanted to ask you about writing with Train, because as I understand it, you've, especially with AM Gold, is it other stuff, or just, now you've been in the band for 3 years or 4 years or something?
Almost 5 years.
Oh, okay. All right. The pandemic time is just like hard to keep track of, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of what lended itself to that kind of creativity, is because we all went home, and it really, that's when I started thinking this way, because Pat very generously was like, hey, you can do this stuff, you know. And I was like, I can? And he was like, yeah, you're good at it. Why don't you try to put some stuff down? And that's what eventually led to more writing. But it was so, because I'm not that confident guy, he was like, you know, you can write and produce and do a bunch of stuff. I never thought like that, and really never had the time or freedom to do that before. So I started getting interested finally in engineering and you know, creating and playing more guitar, playing more piano, singing a lot, and it just kind of all made a lot of sense at that one time. And then it also, you know, just to jump ahead, it also informs your drumming, the thing that you've been working at for a long time, because to play some other instruments and get this feel for like to zoom out a little bit on what the song needs really makes the drumming aspect so much better and so much more informed. But yeah, so I've been able to be creative with Pat for most of my time in this band, and it's really inspiring to be around his thing because it's so out of the box and so his own. Like I said, you know, you're just playing music until he sings on it, and then it's a train song out of nowhere, and you're like, wow, I never would have picked that melody. I'm so glad I sent that to him and he put something down, because he's just he's just so creative and outside the box, you know. He's out of his mind in the best way.
Yeah. So what does that actually look like, though? Is it Pat saying, Matt, spend the next 2 weeks coming up with demos? Is he saying, these are the sorts of like grooves and tempos I'm interested in? Or is it just like, make something, send it to me, you're working with Jerry, I'm going to top line this? Or I mean, what does it look like?
It is top lining, but there's no real specific direction, especially lately. You know, it's this slow burn of like, when he wants to get in on something, you know about it, and you better be quick, and you better be good, and you better get it to him now. He's a true artist, you know. He wakes up inspired some days and is like, we got to do it, let's go, you know.
Yeah.
And he just has to get it out of his system, I think, and then he'll let you know from there if it's a thing, or and we should run with it, or if it's gonna maybe die on a folder somewhere.
Right.
And there's a lot of swinging that needs to happen on my end, and the other guys too. Like, you just have to swing and not be precious with a damn thing about it. And he's really refreshingly honest about it. If it's not the thing, you know about it right away. And he's plain and simple about it, and he's not worried about you know, your feelings as much. He's just like, we'll get it, this just isn't it, we got to scrap this and start over. Yeah
Well, that's totally refreshing, though, isn't it?
Really saves a lot of time, because so many people in this industry are just yes people, and they'll try to polish something that's no good or isn't the thing, and they'll try, and you're spending weeks on something that ultimately ends in a folder where it could have 2 weeks ago, and you could have started something fresh. So that speed is something I've been working on, because it's not conventional to be home and have your little, you know, airplane here and try to control everything and get something down real quick and send it off, you know. I've developed a good routine here where I'll go to like my studio space in the morning, like early mornings, like 7 a.m., track what I need to for the day, come home, edit it, get it ready, put some music down, send it off. You know, like there's a morning routine to this for me, and then the rest of the afternoon is kind of like seeing where it lands. In his world or someone else's, you know. It's like, it's a great way to just be creative every day, even if none of it goes anywhere. It's just a good repetition. Well, it's a muscle.
It's a muscle, and it's a skill to cultivate, right? So
totally,
you got to stay in it.
Yeah, you get dull. Like we've just been on tour for 2.5 months, and I came back and I was like, I sent one to Jerry, this idea, and I was just like, it's not good. We're not going to show it to him. We're not going to do anything with this. But I needed to get it down, because I needed to get a rep in before I dove into like real stuff. And it wasn't good, and I love it anyway.
Ben Folds. I got to do a songwriting workshop with Ben Folds a few years ago, which was incredible.
Oh, you're kidding? He's amazing.
I mean, you get to this stage of the game, and it's hard to like say that anybody's your number one. I think that maybe that's kind of naive. But if I had to choose probably one human being who's had the single most influence on my music and my playing, it is Ben Folds, especially early on. So getting to just even meet him was kind of like, I don't get particularly starstruck much, but let's put it this way: the respect level and admiration for Ben Folds is so high. I would have been much more comfortable meeting like Barack Obama than Ben Folds. I mean, Ben Folds is just like, anyway.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to be your number one. That's a lot of good stuff there.
And man, I don't know if you haven't read his book.
I don't read, so.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's going to be a problem.
Okay.
I'll do the audiobook.
Do the audiobook. Oh my goodness, it's an incredible book. But anyway, the reason I thought about Ben Folds here is because you were talking about getting reps in, and he was talking about this idea of when you start writing or any creativity, you have to let essentially you're thinking of a faucet that hasn't been run for a while, and you let the dirty water run, and then you get to the clean water. But it's exactly what you're saying, and you can't actually skip that step. So don't be embarrassed or self-conscious about the shit that ultimately has to be born first. You're not just going to start and be like, oh my God, here's a gem. I've been working on this for 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Or I've been the terrible thing that can happen, this big loop that you get into, is you're too precious with it, and you keep going, no, this is good, and then it's years of that or something. In some cases, there's plenty of people who do that, and you have to the practice of being unprecious is its own thing that you have to like tune into.
Do you mean if you have something,
get that dirty water out?
Do you mean if you have something that's not that good, but you think that it is, or you're tied to it and you just can't let it go?
Or it is good and it's just never the right time, but you keep bringing it back into the fold. There's stuff that's objectively good that just wasn't right for that day. Yeah. That's in its own column. Yeah. But like, there's stuff that just the timing is never right, but you're so obsessed with it and you can't get off of it. That it stifles your other avenues and really hurts you ultimately. You have to just keep churning stuff out, get that dirty water out and get to the clean water.
Yeah.
Which by the time you come to something that you're really into and comes across your desk, you're ready for it. You're like, okay, I've got this dialed right now. This is good timing for me. We're going to go and really find something here.
Yeah. Cool. I love it.
Much like an Eric Henry Anderson track coming across my desk at the right time.
Exactly, man. Okay, so something I wanted to ask you, especially having been on, well, you've obviously toured a lot, but even right now you're coming off, 3 months, 4 months, pretty much incessantly?
Two and a half months.
Yeah.
With basically no break.
Yeah. So there's just no doubt that the social, political landscape around the country, around the world is definitely tense, and certainly has been for a while. I think it's probably the tendency of every generation to think this is, it's always like this, but I do think it's more fragmented. I think it's more divided. It seems to be people of my parents' generation agree with that statement as well. You don't need to sign on to that if you don't agree. But my question is, do you notice any particular differences, saying you're playing in all sorts of markets, and obviously some are more red and some are more blue and some are purple and some are of ideas that are maybe not nicely fitting into either one of those or the other? And my observation is that the crew that goes to train shows is actually pretty mixed across all sorts of, you get a lot of different people that come to these shows. And I'm just wondering, I guess, what you make of that. And it's kind of a long question, so forgive me. But as an artist, as a musician, as a performer, what do you think the remedy is to that? Is it just, let's just play the show and make people feel better and remember community? Or, do we have an obligation or a place to maybe ask some of the more, I guess, critical questions? Or how do you think about all that?
It's such an interesting thought, and it's really more an artist conversation than a guy playing drums for an artist. But the guy playing drums for the artist does have to subscribe to and believe what's going down up there in terms of words on a microphone. But I will say, it's kind of disappointingly enough to answer this question, that I don't really, from where I am, I'm really worried about making one guy happy. And so that attention doesn't get paid closely to an audience, or who's out there, or what shirt or hat they're wearing. I know there's a mixed bag of people out there at every show, but certainly at train shows too. And I really I have an arm's length relationship with it, both on purpose, like social media, people DM or whatever, and I kind of stay away from that on purpose, because I'm not looking for that kind of contact out there. And I think in the venues, you're in South Bend, Indiana. there is you know just geographically there's going to be certain folks out there, but it's nothing I can usually feel closely from the drum riser. You know, it's more during the day, the local crew. You get a vibe for the geographic location you're at, but I will say that it's very rare that anyone rubs anyone the wrong way or acts unprofessionally or is sort of weirdly confrontational. It's all pretty much like we're all there for the same reason, to put up and take down this show and move on. You know, so sorry, that's a disappointing answer. The answer is I don't know. Well, but I know my guy's on the right side of things, and I'm really happy about that, because I think it would be a different situation if it wasn't that way. For me, there would be a lot more thinking, but he's not gone wrong in my time, and I'm so excited and happy to essentially endorse that person by being on stage with them. You know.
Well, and that's, unless you're an excellent actor, that's certainly evident, you know, in the way that you play. I mean, I can tell that when you're up there, you are not phoning it in. And I don't actually think that that's an unsatisfying
I'm phoning
answer.
it in.
Oh, you are? Okay. All right. Here we are. Good. You heard it here on Conversations for
all on
Convergence.
track.
Matt Musty is phoning it in. That's a good place to stop. Have a good day. No.
No, thank you. That means a lot. I think the live show, we all strive for that. So I'm glad it shows. We did some 3 shows this summer in the round, this rotating stage that like slowly goes 180 and then slowly goes back the other way, and the crowd is just all around you, and it's the weirdest stage setup ever. Done a couple of those in the past, but with Train, it's all goofball stuff all the time, and like they saw so many of our like behind the scenes tricks, like Jerry coming over and playing the drums and throwing the drumstick, and everyone's like, I'm scooting drumsticks to fans over here, and it's just like it was just the craziest thing. But I think that's all that is to say that we're just having fun up there, and those shows were particularly fun because they got to see how much fun, really close, how much fun we actually are having up there. There's nothing serious going on. There's like, you know, you're working hard, you're definitely executing what you need to execute, but there's a lot of inside jokes and just silly stuff going on at the same time, and it just becomes this fun, silly thing we do.
Can you actually feel the rotating stage? Like how does it compare to Rough Seas on Sail Across the Sun?
That's the Train cruise. I think it's different. They're both weird. But you can't feel it's going so slow that you can't feel it, but you can see the crowd moving.
And you know slowly. They're not actually moving. It's you.
Yeah. So it's really weird. And then for the guitarists and stuff, they're switching guitars with techs and grabbing different instruments, and that's such a it's already hard enough on a stage that stays still. This one, everyone's looking for their guy. They're like, oh, where's that acoustic guitar? Oh, it's behind me. Okay, I got to go that way right now. So, and for me, I cue the clicks and tracks and stuff on my left foot, so I'm waiting for everyone to get set. And some of those, on the rotating stages, some of those transitions from song to song were a little bit longer because we couldn't find where our instruments were. So, ended up being really fun.
Do you ever have to kill the sequence, the click, whatever, start over? I'd really be curious if you have any sort of routine, like even with physiology, to get in the state, because a lot of the shows we're doing on click as well, and like depending on if I had an argument with somebody or too much coffee or not enough coffee or maybe tequila or whatever, and you're like, not, sometimes it's perfectly easy to fall right with the click, or other times I'm like, this song has got to be the wrong tempo. There's no way this is the right tempo. And then, you know, it is most of the time. I'm sure with you guys, it's always the right tempo. But like, she's like, no, that was actually me who was like in a totally different biological world.
To me, that's the beauty of having that as a drummer, and drummers get blamed for this kind of thing. At least first, the finger goes to drums.
Yeah, right.
It's such a safety net to have a click on things, because that was the same as the last 30 shows. You know, we've had this same tempo unless it's changed. And the other luxury for me is that we've got a dedicated tracks person who runs that, has a redundant system. If something fails, it shoots to the other computer and it'll go. Not only that, but Tim Shanehalls is our guy, is a musician, so he's like this other member of the band. So that if I have to bail on the tracks, I click it twice, and for some reason, whatever it is, it's rare that happens. But if I do have to, he can usually punch us back on a chorus downbeat or something that gets it back, and you're like, whew, nice one, thank you. You know,
because it cues the lights, right, as well, or it's at least synced, right?
It sends the like SMPTE code or whatever. I'm not sure what magic happens in that pedal that sends, but it starts a light sequence, and his light sequence won't go down if the tracks go down. He'll continue on and do his thing, Joel. But really, the tracks are. It's rare that we have to bail on it, but it's such an interesting thing. Definitely in my first tour with Train, I had to bail on tracks more than lately, because I'll like force where it's going and be like, no, here it is, here it is, here it is, 2, 3, 4, go. You know, I'll like bully my way into like, no, we're not sliding faster than that. We're behind. We're here.
We're here.
You know.
So the real question is, would your tech? Would he be the kind of guy who's going to tap on your back like that video I sent you? That's amazing.
John Jackson is God's gift to drum techs, I will say. He is the greatest. Like we were talking about, we need to hold some like tech awards, and he would be just the president of that organization, because he's the greatest person, the greatest, most detail-oriented, like truly committed person to whatever the vision is, and he will have it dialed. And he would totally be up there tapping my leg. Or a more recent situation that happened is we're about to go on, there's a big train whistle, we're about to walk on, and we're at some like fair, like county fair gig, rental packs, like rental ear packs. So the whistle goes, we're about to walk on, and we've got about 30 seconds, and I realize my pack isn't working. It's on, but I'm not getting anything. I go over to him like panicked, like a deer in the headlights, and he just very calmly gives me his pack, because he's got my same mix, and he goes, I'll see you song 2. And then he came out song 2. He's like fiddling around with me, and he's plugging me into the new pack, and it's all, whatever it is, it worked out brilliantly, and he's just ready for any situation. So yes, he would be the kind of guy who just like shirt off his back if he needed it, whatever. He's out there, and he's committed to this the same way that the whole Train crew is. They're all they're all on the same team. Yeah. And it's a thing of beauty to see. And it's why like certain, you know, Sam Mitchum, the tour manager, always says there are certain local crews at these sheds and different places where they'll come up to him and say, hey man, we signed on because we saw you guys were going to be here this day. We know what to expect with you guys, and we love when you come here. It just makes for an easy, pleasant, beautiful day, and thank you for coming back. Yeah. And that's the way that crew operates, dude. There's attention to detail in all facets of this band, but none more than in the crew. Yeah.
Well, I love hearing that. Like my style, what I think is really cool about how you're explaining that is the Train gig works. Everybody's a badass. There's a high level of musicianship. There's obviously things that are done specifically, but it's also a bundle of fun. And when you're on stage, you're just enjoying every minute of it. And that, I also think that a lot of times, like, what gets you to that level is the fact that you do have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And then when you're actually there, you know what you're doing cold. And then so where you do want to emote and flex and like share and interact, you can do that without it taking extra RAM, because you're so present.
Totally. And you have these fail safes available. You're totally right. That's first. It's jokey on stage, but make no mistake, everything is dialed first before you can be jokey. If you're jokey and shit's going poorly, then don't be jokey. Or poker face it and be like, someone's guitar is out of tune and they're switching it out. Be like, hey, over here, audience, look over here while they do that. You know, it's show business. I mean, that's like, that's what I've learned on this gig, is like there's a real attention to taking care of those moments. And it's really fun to see. I've learned a lot about just a live show in that way, a touring live thing. But you're right, those fail safes, those like the stage is taped off the same way. Our stage manager Tim Peffer, it's his attention to detail. He's one of those guys too. Everything is exactly the same as it was the night before, so that the band is dialed and not fumbling around at all. Everything is exactly the same. It's so weird. It's such a miracle that we can play a show in Minneapolis and be in Green Bay the next day and it looks the same. And you're like, where are we? What day is it? That's why musicians get that way. Because A, we're spoiled, and B, a lot of us have this great kind of crew situation where you're dialed every single day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a real luxury out there on that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Train song to perform? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, but is there one that really sticks out, or two? Or
I mean, the obvious one is Drops of Jupiter. I mean, that's just a timeless song, and it's such a pleasure to play it every night. The other deep cut is a song called Don't Grow Up So Fast, which doesn't have drums on it. A lot of my favorite music doesn't have drums on it. But that's a beautiful song about, you know, a young kid taking things for granted and an adult saying, hey man, don't grow up so fast. These are precious times. Enjoy. And we got to play, I learned that song because I did some brushes on it for a gig with the Boston Pops. And it was just the greatest moment for me. I wish we played that song, or I wish Pat played that song just acoustic by himself, because it's just it's not obvious like Drops of Jupiter, but it is, I think it's got to be my favorite Train song.
Yeah. Tell me the name of that one more time.
Don't Grow Up So Fast.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if you guys, maybe I've heard it. Maybe I've heard it, but
it's gorgeous. It's just, I think it's just acoustic guitar and vocal.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be, if not just a slight like mellotron or pad thing happening in the background. Yeah, it's just it's just Pat at his best. Like really beautiful, beautiful vocal, beautiful words, great delivery, great simple production.
Yeah, I
love that.
Was it in the Sparks show? I mean, I had to bail early to get inside.
No, we've played it once, and it was in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, or in my time at least.
Yeah. One thing that I definitely noticed at the Sparks show during Calling All Angels, which is one of my favorite Train songs for sure.
Mine too. Yeah.
I would say, agree with you. Drops of Jupiter is just a very special. Like that's probably always going to be number one. I mean, sometimes people come across an extremely unique kind of once in a lifetime motivation, and I'm aware of what that song's about. I've heard Pat talk about in interviews, and
yeah, it's beautiful.
He's probably not going to top that, which is fine, because that's like
he's going to try.
Well, and he should,
yeah,
and I hope he does. I didn't mean it like that. It's just that there's certain moments, and there's a abundant weight of certain situations that sometimes, I mean, that's kind of your song, but it's just incredible. But Calling All Angels, you know, there's a moment where he's addressing the crowd and essentially calling on everybody to pull and share the love energy with those among us who need it. And it is moments like that where I believe that music has the power to dissolve all of the barriers and the lines that we feel. And so you don't necessarily need to be going on tour or on interviews and preaching about your politics to be making a positive impact. Sometimes just playing the show and showing people that it's not that those things don't matter, because they do, but what really matters is that when people feel a sense of community and they can bond over something like music, all of that becomes more manageable and less critical. And I felt that moment during that show, and I know other people did too.
I agree with that. I agree with what you said about it, and I think that's where he's coming from on that particular moment. If only for a moment we can just be on the same page.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
It's beautiful, and that's a beautiful song too. I wish I was around in this band for a couple of those tracks, because those are just legendary. Yeah. But we've got some things cooking at all times.
That's cool.
You know, I wouldn't bet against this. I wouldn't bet against my man.
No. AM Gold was great. I love that.
Thanks, man.
Still curious. So when you're doing this writing stuff, though, are you and Jerry closely communicating on the co-writing, or is it one or the other? Or are you starting with an idea, sending it to him? Is he doing that?
It runs the gamut, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, we are. Jerry and I communicate closely as to where it's going and what the B section should be, and like, you know, every part of it's thought about with two heads instead of one, on those. And then there's band writing too, like where you're in a room with everyone, which is really fun too, because everyone gets to kind of throw it down and see where it lands. And, you know, even just the practice of getting in a room and with a full band scenario and an engineer, and like that's new to me, because, you know, historically for me, I show up, the song's written, and there's a producer directing where it's going.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to write from nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it runs the gamut depending on the tune or the situation. But Jerry's just a great musician, you know. He's scrappy, and he's self-taught, and he's like, he's got that thing that the real slick guys are lacking, which is just a real music in his soul, and like, even if it takes a little longer to get to, there's something to this song. Like, he can see, that's why he's the MD, is because he can get to the point of something. He can,
which is a superpower.
It really is.
That can be occluded by too much education or finesse, or polish.
You can get so far out in the weeds, or so zoomed into the drum part or the bass part or the guitar part. And he's really good at streamlining the point of each song, or the point and flow of a set list with Pat. And he and Pat have worked together closely for so many years that really I'm just an extension of Jerry in that capacity. Yeah. Like, if he needs drums, I can go get him done. Have him to you in 20 minutes, you know? So really, he's driving that ship largely in the co-writing sense, in the production sense. Yeah. And then they do records with Butch Walker, and he's another great music head to have on these things. He's another guy who can see the point.
Cool.
And works well with Pat. And I'm a chameleon. It depends on the day what my actual role is, but
cool.
You know, hopefully I can add and not subtract from a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So I see you guys just announced a European tour. I guess my final question here is just what's next for Matt Musty? What's on the horizon for you and for Train? And I guess anything else you want to share with the audience?
Well, I think that's the thing that's announced right now, is the European tour, and that's going to be really exciting. I've never done Europe on a bus, so this will be a first time for me. And there's Royal Albert Hall's on that list, so I'm really excited for that show and for the rest of it. You know, it's always, because of these comforts of like the detail that goes into this gig, I know it's going to be great, and that's such a freeing feeling to go over there and be like, well, it's going to be great. Let's make it incredible, but it's at least going to be great. Let's try for incredible. Yeah. So that's that. Aside from that, I'm here. I'm doing sessions and writing and producing and just doing music. I love what I get to do. It's a pretty, sincerely, I'm a lucky guy, and I love my life. I'm in a good zone right now, and so is Allie. We're just in like a good part of our lives right now. It's strong. It's centered. It's like, it's good. Things are good for me right now.
Cool.
And things are good, and they've been bad before. So I'm always excited for the good times.
I mean, it's a cliche, but there's just no way you can fully appreciate and experience the more consistent or the good times in life if you haven't been through the shit. Yeah. It's just, you just can't.
Wait, we didn't talk about your song. You got a minute to talk about your song?
Absolutely, yeah.
Dude, Ocean of Oxytocin.
I can't wait to get it out.
Why don't you tell these listeners how it came together? Now, I'm the captain now.
Okay,
You're
all
being
right.
interviewed.
This is the Matt Musty Show. Well, I guess for those who don't know, which is probably everybody, I met Matt on the boat on the Sail Across the Sun cruise, which is a cruise that Train charters. It's basically a music festival on the water. It's absolutely so much fun. My band got to perform on there, and then I hit you up maybe a few months. Thank you. After the probably about a month after the cruise, is a little bit of a blur, but you know, had certainly admired your playing, but had checked out some of the things you've worked on, and as I had mentioned, just really trying to spread my wings as far as working with different people and trying to get out of my comfort zone. And then when I approached you, what was so cool about that experience, among pretty much all of it, was just, how we, I basically had the framework of this song, and I was really interested in fully getting your take on it, your production on it, which is, maybe you can relate to this as well. Even a few years ago, that was so much more difficult for me to actually just fully trust. Even if I really had huge respect for somebody, you just get tied to this idea of how you want things to be. And working on the song with you was amazing, because I really was committed to, like, okay, you trust this guy, you hired this guy, let's see how he interprets this and release control of all the details, and just let's see where this goes.
That was the thing that surprised me the most about it, was, your ability to be hands off and not precious about a single thing. Like, the song was there, obviously. Mm-hmm. I think you had that comfort that you knew it was a great song. Mm-hmm. And it can go in this lane, it can go in this lane, or it can go in this lane. And I chose a lane, mm-hmm. and you were just like, cool, go do it, have fun, thank you. Yeah. And like that doesn't happen every day, and that's a real luxury as a producer, mm-hmm. when you're wearing the producer hat, for the artist to have full trust, mm-hmm. having not worked together before. Yeah. That's something that many times takes years, and I could tell it, it was a practice for you. And when I asked you about it, you're like, well, I've been working on relinquishing control for sure a little bit. And it's such a valuable thing, because I think, I mean, even two cooks in the kitchen isn't much, but one cook in the kitchen, you left me to my devices, and God, it was full freedom. And sure. I just, I like many things, I just kept referencing the 1975 and mm-hmm. Michael Jackson, mm-hmm. and you were like, yeah, I'm down, that sounds right, that sounds good. That's not where I was thinking, but in a good way, like both minds. And I think if I had gone wrong, you would have steered it back. But like, what absolutely a great practice to have that trust, sure, blind trust, that and thank you for that. Yeah,
of course, thank you for your work and your intention on it. And absolutely, if at any moment I actually thought, like, okay, I don't like where this is going, I certainly would have spoken up. But I never had that emotion. The only thing I ever felt was, in a few instances, this is not exactly what I would have done with it, but never like, oh, I don't like this. And also this immediate reminder of, well, Eric, what are you trying to accomplish here? Because I produced much or most of all the stuff I've ever done before. It's not like I don't know how to do that at some level. It's just, if I do that, it's going to sound like more or less like all of the things I've done before, which I'm very proud of, but that's not what I want to do right now. I want to expand. And so it was a wonderful
also
experience.
Thank you. Same here. And a version of that, when you told me this, I was blown out, but you said at the end of it, you were like, this is the first song of mine that's coming out under my name that I'm only singing on it and not playing keys and other instruments. Yeah. So that was a next level of trust. That's like, oh my God, you can hire a keyboard player to come in and do this. Yeah. I don't need to be the one doing it. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that way too. Like, depending on the budget, sometimes I'll have a different drummer play on stuff, so I can hear in a different way, and use their feel and their touch, because they're right for it and I'm not. Yeah. And it takes a lot of growth and maturity to get to that level. Yeah. And for sure. I commend you for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It's something else that actually came to mind when you were saying it takes a long time to get to that point. The truth is, I've actually gone through that period. I just didn't know you during that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have worked with external producers a fair amount at this point. I mean, again, most of it has been self-produced or produced within my band, but there's been plenty of other producers, and all of them of really a high quality level. And every single time I've probably fought more than I should have. Mm-hmm. Because then, and it just depends. Obviously, you can lob ideas back and forth, and there is a beautiful give and take that can happen there. And there was some of that, but there's also a point where it's like, okay, if you hire somebody to help you do something and you're basically shutting down everything they try to do, at some point you're not even going to have their full energy anymore, because they're just constricted. And
and why would you
do that? Why would you do that? Exactly. That's ridiculous. So
Well, I'm excited for everyone to hear this. I think I'm really proud of it, and
me too, man.
I love what you do, man.
Thank you. You as well. I hope that we'll be working on more things in the future. So
we will, absolutely.
So Matt Musty on Instagram, right? It's just Matt Musty, or is it something else?
That's my handle on there.
Okay, and all socials that people can find you. Your website, I think, mattmusty.com.
Yeah, everything's just I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I have a website, and that's
cool.
Hopefully, I mean, one day I'm gonna get off all this shit, so that'll be great.
That's how you made it, man.
You'll only be able to email me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. That's
great.
It's great talking to you as always, but in
likewise.
Today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conversations for Convergence. If you'd like to support the show or any of my musical endeavors, the best way is by joining my Patreon at patreon.com/Eric Henry Anderson. Of course, sharing the episodes with friends and family and rating and reviewing the show wherever you listen to podcasts helps immensely. For all other things Eric Henry Anderson, be sure to sign up for my mailing list at erichenryanderson.com. That's Anderson ending in S-E-N. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Eric Henry Anderson, and on X at capital E, capital H, capital A, N, D, E, R, S, E, N Music. Thanks for listening.